Reggie, do you agree with what this scout had to say?
I do agree with what the scout had to say because there's no magic to this thing. You know what I mean? I don't care how many Tom Brady's, how many Gronkowski's you go get, how many Leonard Fournette's you go get. You still have to put it together on the football field. And if you look at this offseason, this was a very different offseason for everybody. And we talk about this all the time on our college football show. The teams that have continuity returning, right? That's a returning quarterback, a returning system with the head coach, all those pieces. Those are going to be the teams that are better served to win football games. Those are going to be the teams that are better served to be successful because they have that continuity returning. But you think about Tom Brady coming from New England, this is a tough situation for him to be in because he's asked to go and do the same exact thing that he did in New England with less work, right? So think about the game that they played against the New Orleans Saints. That was the first time this team had been together in live action, right? That was the first time this team had to overcome adversity together. And unfortunately, they had to go down to New Orleans and to do it against a three-time NFC South defending champ.
Yeah, it's not easy. Skip, look, the comparable situation that I can think of is Peyton Manning. But what Denver allowed Peyton to do, Skip, bring your system. Yeah. We're going to learn your system.
That's true.
And not you learn ours. If they had said, Tom, come on down, we're going to implement your system. Mike Evans, Godwin, offense, we're going to learn Tom's system. Okay. Yep. But Tom is learning their system. That's not easy to do because Tom knows how to throw an out route. But what's the verbiage that get him to throw the out route? So that's what he's having to learn over again. And the expectations. When you get Tom Brady, expectations are Super Bowl. You get Peyton Manning, it's Super Bowl. You get LeBron James, it's Super Bowl. There are certain guys that you get on your roster, the expectations are through the roof. And it's going to take time. I knew it would take time. People just think, well, he's great. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about no verbiage. No. You got to go through it. And as you mentioned, Reggie, this offseason was unlike any other offseason in NFL history. Basically, this was the first preseason game. But in actuality, this game counted, Skip, for real. Because this was the first time they're going against someone that's not in their color uniforms. And to do this on the road, and like all of a sudden you're playing a game, Coach Belichick says it's like practice. But the only thing is at practice, you're trying to get better. In the game, you're trying to win this game. It's a tough situation. Do I believe they will get better? Sure. But for people to actually think that you were just going to throw this thing out there and Tom Brady was going to throw for 5 touchdowns and they're going to go up and down the field, it just doesn't work like that. There will be some growing pains.
Okay, Quick question. What happened in Denver the year before Peyton got there?
They won the division.
They did, and it was Tim Tebow, and I get it. It was a whole different way. They just had to scrap everything and say, we're going to run the read option, and we're just going to try to figure it out. Right. And they did. They won the division, and they beat Big Ben Roethlisberger in a playoff game. Right. And then they went to New England and got
ramshackle.
They did. Okay. So at least Peyton joined a situation that was on the rise. The defense was on the rise. The offense had weapons.
They had comparable weapons.
They did.
You had Demaryius Thomas. You had Eric Decker. You had Julius Thomas.
I got it. Okay. What's the only real dream team situation we've ever seen in the National Football League? Well, speaking of 2011, that summer, the Philadelphia Eagles had a whole bunch of cap space, and they had a brand new, young, rising GM named Howie Roseman at age 35, and he said, you know what? Let's just shoot the moon. Let's go out and overpay everybody on the market, strap ourselves against the cap, but let's see if we can go win this championship this year. And what do? They get my friend Nnamdi Asomugha, and I was like shaky on this, take him from Oakland, where he's a man corner, and you try to put him in zone coverage. And then they got Cullen Jenkins, and they got DRC, Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, and who the only one who worked was Jason Babin because he had 18 sacks that year, but everybody else they signed, Ronnie Brown, the Dolphins. Running back, But
Vince Young?
Yeah, Vince Young.
Because he won the corner turn.
He did it, but there was an interview that he did. His first sit down, he's the backup quarterback. And the last question in the interview was, what do you think of all these pieces you guys have added the last couple of days? And he chuckled for a second and said, dream team. And that quote lived in infamy because that team started out 4-8. Then it won its last 4 games to get to 8-8. And it was like Cowboy-esque where they were 4th in yards gained in the league. They were 8th in yards allowed. That's pretty good, right? And they went 8-8, and it was a big bust, big swing and miss. Well, this is very different than that because most of these pieces were in place. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so you add the GOAT quarterback and the GOAT tight end.
Right.
And late you throw in Leonard Fournette, but he's still just the backup running back. It's Rojo all day, all night, right? And so my point is, how is that a dream team scenario? It really isn't because the offense, it was really good last year.
Yes.
It led the league in passing yards.
Well, Skip, it's kind of like when you bring in a substitute teacher. She doesn't change the entire curriculum for what the regular teacher's been teaching. She has to learn that. But in this situation, Tom Brady had to learn a new. If you let Tom say, well, Tom, just bring your system. You've been in this system for 20 years. It's easier for us to learn your system as opposed the other way.
No.
Okay, Skip, now I would expect to see Tom on top of it.
Okay.
But learn a new system. And plus, Skip, look, missed the first game, and I don't want to read too much in it. But I need to see Gronk move a little better than what I saw on Sunday.
It was shaky, I agree.
So
I thought Tom was a lot better than Gronk was. Go ahead, Reggie.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it don't matter how many pieces you bring together. They are really good on paper as a team, right? But at the end of the day, you got to show up on the football field. You got to put it in motion. Tom Brady has to get used to his new weapons, his new receivers. You got to trust them, right? And the same thing with the offensive line, the defense, everything. You got to know exactly what you're getting every game. There's no magic to this thing. I know sometimes we look at basketball, right? And a guy like LeBron James or you can put a team together and okay, that team's going to be in the playoffs. It does not work that same way in football, I promise you, because there's so many elements that you have that work against you, right? One of those is injuries, right? Who has had more injuries than Rob Gronkowski? That boy is beat up. And so I don't care if he take a whole year off, 2 years off, it doesn't matter. Those injuries don't go away. And the same thing for Tom Brady. You don't get more youthful when you leave. And he's already in his 40s, right? And people have to lower your expectations for this football team. Yes, they were all great individually in their previous teams and in their careers. But when you're trying to put all that together in one season with no off-season work, it's very tough to do. Yeah,
you got to trust, Skip. I mean, Tom Brady spent years with guys, with the Julian Edelmans and the guys that he's built up trust with. Although Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are better, B.A. wants him to put the ball up. You talk about 6 big-time throws. B.A. wants 16 a game. And you got to rewire Tom to say, Tom, just throw it up. Where Tom's like, nah, I've been cautious. I don't just throw the ball up willy-nilly and throw it into double coverage. If the guy's open, I throw him the ball. If he's covered, I go to the other guy that's open. That's how I do it. But Tom has got to get rewired because B.A. wants him to take chances that he's never taken in his 20-year career.
So, bottom line to this, I'm still all in on the Bucs, but you guys are both right. The odds against this are high because there were no preseason games.
Right.
That's what the hard part is.
And even with Joe Montana, Skip, Joe Montana went to an offense. Paul Hackett was the offensive coordinator. He ran the exact same offense that Joe had in San Francisco. So Joe had to learn no new terminology. So he just walks in and two-jet flanker drive. Why bingo pig?
Remember who presented Joe at the Hall of Fame? Paul Hackett.
Yeah.
So it was like, here.
Exactly.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.